class with the great maestro Manolo Marin one day, and he turned to the class and he addressed the class and he said, "Do you know who is responsible for promoting and exposing flamenco in the world?" He answered his own question with the South Africans. And it is Dame Hazel Acosta, who we are speaking today, who is one of the pioneers and is responsible for that great exposure of flamenco in the world. Hello Hazel, it is a great pleasure and an honor to welcome you as our first guest on Hablamos Flamenco. You have dedicated your life to this art form, having contributed so much. In fact, to the point of being granted the civil merit of Dame Commander by His Majesty King Philip of Spain. Hazel, you were in Spain to experience one of the greatest explosive eras of Spanish dance, a time of large touring companies, of great solo artists like Carmen Amaya, Paco de Lucia, Camarón de la Isla, Antonio Gades, and so many more.
Luisillo's company came to town and I wasn't prepared for what I saw. The passionate dancing of the people and the mystery of it all. I'd never seen anything like it, and my soul and heart wanted to follow that path.
You had an illustrious career in South Africa, dancing ballet in the ballet company.
Yes.
But I presume your heart was to follow flamenco.
I wanted to go to Spain.
And by way of London, I believe.
We did a show for the Sunday Ballet Club and we rehearsed at the Royal Ballet Studios in Bayswater. And when I was doing pliés, we did class every day to prepare, to warm up for rehearsal. And when I was doing my pliés, afterwards I turned around and there was Nureyev in front of me.
Oh my goodness. How did that affect your class?
I didn't do any work the rest of the class. I just wanted to watch him.
Yes, I'm sure.
But I wanted to do flamenco. So I went to Mercedes' mother, La Kika, the great dancer La Kika.
Oh, wonderful.
And she had been around in the 1920s in the Café Cantantes, and she traveled all over the world. She was a fantastic dancer.
And so how did she conduct her classes in those days?
Well, she taught me everything I know about flamenco. She taught me all the rhythms and the llamadas of all the rhythms and a short dance in each and every rhythm. And she demonstrated, and then she sat down and played the guitar.
And they did what is called Spanish dance. Can you explain the difference between flamenco and Spanish dance?
Yes, Spanish dance is the whole thing. The regional, the classical, the estilizado, and flamenco. I went along to audition, but he looked at me and said, no. We can't have a blonde person in the company.
Oh, gosh.
And so I said, no problem, I'll go and dye my hair. And I presented myself the next day with dark brown hair.
When was the first time you actually performed flamenco in Spain?
Well, I didn't perform solo in the company as we danced group numbers, but one day in Austria the audience kept on wanting more, and we'd run through all the encores that had been planned, and then suddenly Luisio came to me and said, Avajanita, because that's what he called me, a little hazelnut.
I see.
And he said, come out and dance. So I went, got up and did my number, and everybody was happy with it. And the audience went mad, and the guitarists liked it, and the singer liked it, and the whole company liked it. So from then on, I was included in the encore.
Emilio Acosta, there's a photograph of him behind you. He was a great love in your life. Can you tell me a little bit about how you met and what it was like to be with him in the touring company?
Well, I fell madly in love with him. And he was a gypsy and very different from me in every aspect, but he was a good-looking guy and very charming, and we fell in love with each other.
Isn't that wonderful?
And I married him eventually.
Yes, and you have a beautiful daughter from him too,
yes,
Louisa.
yes.
Can you tell me, I know that you toured all over the place with the company.
Yeah.
What was it like touring with the company in those days?
It was very hard.
If you're going to a different town every night,
Yes.
had they planned your itinerary?
No. We had to go run around looking for places to stay. We had to pay for our own food and own living expenses, and we used to find hotels that were cheap, and go and find a restaurant to eat in, and then go to this theatre, and then unpack the skips, and then do a placing call, and then do a show, and then come back to the hotel. And we used to get on the bus at 8:30 in the morning and travel all morning. So it was very hard.
Yes.
And we
How did your classical training help learning flamenco? And do you think it is a prerequisite?
Today, I think it is advisable to do ballet because the nature of flamenco is changing into a more contemporary style. But in those days, I had to unlearn a lot of technique, and today everybody's got everything they want, so it's become much more sophisticated.
And did it help you with the Spanish dance?
Yes, of course. It helped me with the classical side of Spanish dance and the regional side of Spanish dance, but not with flamenco.
Hazel, can you tell me some of your most memorable performances?
There are three that strike me in Europe. The one was in Paris, in the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées. The other was in Verona, in the Arena di Verona. And the other was in Venice at the Fenice.
Could you tell me why the Champs-Élysées is so memorable?
Well, we had a month season there, and it was the theatre where the Rite of Spring was first done by Nijinsky, and it caused riots in the streets, so it had a long history, and we were part of that history, that we danced there for a whole season. Once you stay in one place for a long time, you go to the theatre, your clothes are all there and your makeup is set out, and you can work on yourself. But you're so busy on tour trying to get through the performances.
And the theatre in Venice, why was that?
That was so beautiful. When we arrived there, the manager of the theatre put us on stage in the darkness, and then he said, I want you to see this empty. And then he just turned on little lights in the boxes, gradually lifted the lights so we could see all the plush velvet and gilt and red velvet and the painted ceiling, and it was like magic. It was a show in itself. As we had to do palmas for at least 45 minutes and learn all the dances so that we could get the llamadas correctly and stop where we needed to stop, and we were exhausted afterwards, and I had to do jaleo as well. In Finland, we'd booked, Luisillo booked us into a hotel. We didn't earn enough money to pay for the hotel, so we all refused to stay in the hotel, and we went to the park opposite the hotel, and we were going to settle down on the park benches. It was the land of the midnight sun, don't forget.
Yes.
It didn't get dark.
Yes.
It only got twilight at midnight. And then the hotel was so upset because they'd obviously turned people away. So Luisillo, they called Luisillo, and he came, and then he paid half of our money.
With accommodation?
Yes.
Under duress?
Under duress. He saw us all with our bags and everything in the park, sleeping like gypsies. I do know that when we were in rehearsals and in Madrid, I went down at lunchtime and practiced every day.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
So I continued to improve my technique. There was a lot of work I needed to do. We were so tired that we had a siesta. Instead of going straight to the theatre, we needed to go to sleep. And Luisillo gave us time off. So the whole company was resting. Emilio and I fell fast asleep, and we set our alarm clock to be up at time. We slept through the alarm clock. We slept through the people banging on the door and everything. It was double doors in those days because insulation.
Yeah.
And when we woke up, it was half an hour before the show. But we didn't know where the theatre was.
Oh my word, you still hadn't been to find the venue.
And we asked people who
at the hotel.
at the hotel
Yes.
where they were, and they didn't know, but they looked up in the
Directory. I suppose,
directory
Yeah.
and
Page directory, not a
Yes.
mobile directory.
Yes. and found out we were somewhere, and they told us where, and we ran all the way to the theatre to see Luisillo, and we arrived there at 10 minutes before the show. Luisillo was outside.
Yeah.
The girls had unpacked all our stuff and made up and did my hair and dressed me while I was doing the makeup, and we got fined.
Oh no.
We got
Heavily fine.
Ah.
You got into trouble, big
Yeah.
trouble. And how was the performance that night?
I can't remember.
I'm quite sure. Goodness,
It
Hazel.
was not good.
No, I think that's probably a performance worst nightmare.
Yeah.
And you've lived it.
And I've had nightmares ever since.
I'm sure.
Not arriving on the show,
Yes, yes,
on
yeah.
time for the show.
Yeah.
Pablo Navarro, he was our guitarist.
Now he's the person that you bumped into in Spain.
Yes.
Right? No, in Verona. Wasn't it in Italy?
He was a third guitarist or fourth guitarist in the company when we went to Verona. And one day I was walking down the street and he was having coffee on the pavement and at a little boutique. In fact, we found out that we were both from Cape Town.
Oh my word. I mean, what are the chances? Eh?
Yes.
That's
And
amazing.
we became friends, and when he came back from Spain, we danced with him.
Hazel, I know one of the other most memorable, as you have mentioned, performances was in Verona. Can you tell me something about this, or tell us something about this?
We were invited to do a season in Verona in 1965. 2 seasons, an evening of ballet or Spanish dance and the opera Carmen. In the arena in Verona, they have opera festivals every year to this day, and started in 1913.
That's incredible.
Yes.
To say that this tradition has continued, and you've been a part of that, Hazel.
Yes.
Can you tell us something about that
Well,
experience?
I really got a fright the first time I went out on stage. I had to start in the blackout in a position, and when the lights came up, there was 150 orchestra
Wow.
in front of us, and then 3,000 people, all with holding candles, and then the Roman ruins at the back, and the stars.
I can imagine. I don't think I'd be there. I
It
think I
was
would have
so-
forgotten all my steps.
I couldn't hardly move.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
I had to really concentrate hard. The sets were magnificent. They were built out of plastic. Every interval they would change the scene. The tavern scene and the mountain scene and the bull ring. And there was 1,500 cast extras and chorus, and
Well, no pressure on the lead opera singer.
she was Giulietta Signonato, who was amazing Carmen. She only did the role of Carmen.
Oh, is that
Blanco, que yo te regalé. Que has hecho tú de ese vestido. Blanco, que yo te regalé.
Cameron, I saw in the Plaza de Santa Ana. He used to come and meet his mother, and we went to the tablaos, and after he'd finished in his tablao where he was, he came round and sang at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were still there, and sang for us, and there were only a few of us there.
I believe that you shook the hand of Franco.
Yes.
Is this so?
We did a show at La Granja, at his palace. Several artists came together, and it was commissioned that they have a show in the gardens of La Granja, and after we had performed, we stood in a long line on a red carpet, and Franco came by and shook everybody's hand. But he was sneaky. He didn't look at you directly. He was looking at the next person. Feria de Sevilla, or Semana Santa, we went by bus to another little pueblo, which is a village, and there everybody was sitting in the bar, and late at night everybody started knocking on the table, and one person started singing, and the others did palmas, and eventually, and they took turns in singing, and then eventually Emilio got up and danced, and then they asked me to dance, and I didn't want to. They insisted, and I got up very nervous, and
they loved it.
I realized that it's not what you do, how many steps you do, or how clever you are. It's to get up and enjoy the moment, and that's what it's all about. And if you enjoy the moment, they all would enjoy the moment.
Have you ever experienced duende?
I think I experienced it once in my life. I mean, I always danced with a lot of feeling, but sometimes duende for me is different.
Yes.
It's like the Lorca's duende.
Yes.
I find that you have to be totally focused and totally in the moment, and your technique has to be at your fingertips, and then all of a sudden you can improvise and new things come to you, and it's creation.
Hazel, what for you would you say was flamenco means to you to this day? What is it that calls you, that you have?
Well, I find it a dance of the people, and it can be passionate. You can throw yourself into it, and you've got the freedom to be who you are and not to be somebody else. And there's truth in flamenco. I mean, you find your way. You need to know your rhythms and the palos, and you need to dance from the heart, and that's what I feel about flamenco.
And what do you think of flamenco today? How it's evolved from the 60s?
It's evolved, but I don't find the passion and the feeling has evolved with it. They're so busy trying to do clever steps, and how quickly they do the steps that they forget. Not all, but some people forget about the feeling. And that's my main thing, why I love flamenco.
Hazel Acosta, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, and so interesting your life. How can we fit so many years into one interview? We'd have to have many. But I also know that you have written down your memoirs, and I do hope that you will publish these, because it's a wonderful read. I've enjoyed so much having the privilege of reading the first draft.